The phone your kid holds right now might be the last one they ever own. Not because phones are going away tomorrow, but because the technology quietly replacing them is already on people's faces, on their wrists, and in some cases pressed directly against their eyeballs. And the transition is happening faster than almost anyone is talking about. Here's what this video is actually about. The phone, as we know it, is getting killed. Not by a better phone, but by a completely different category of device. Most people assume that means some flashy sci-fi gadget. But the reality is weirder and more interesting than that. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why the smartphone era is ending, what's replacing it, and why one of the most important breakthroughs in this whole story has almost nothing to do with hardware. That last part is the piece almost nobody is talking about, and it changes everything. Let's start with what's already winning, because it's not what you'd expect. The devices getting the most hype in tech circles, the AI pins, the screenless gadgets, the futuristic concepts, almost all failed. Humane raised $230 million, shipped fewer than 10,000 AI pins, and then bricked every single one of them permanently on February 28, 2025, after selling the company to HP for $116 million. The Rabbit R1 sold around 100,000 units, but a developer eventually discovered it was basically just an Android app running on custom hardware. Daily active users? Roughly 5,000 out of those 100,000 buyers. The first wave of phone replacements got destroyed, and the reason is simple. The bar isn't better than nothing. The bar is better than a smartphone, and smartphones are, in MKBHD's own words, still OP, overpowered. Bright screen, fast chip, 5G, thousands of apps, and you already own one. That's an insane product to try to beat head-on. So the thing that's actually winning right now did the opposite. It looked completely boring on purpose. Meta's Ray-Ban smart glasses. No display, no laser beams, just normal-looking sunglasses with a camera and a speaker. They now own 75 to 80% of the AI smart glasses market, and Meta is planning to double production capacity by the end of 2026 while cutting their VR budgets. They won because they didn't try to replace your phone. They just quietly sat on your face and made themselves useful. That sounds underwhelming until you realize it's the exact strategy that sets up everything coming next. Because what Meta is building toward isn't glasses that supplement your phone. It's glasses that make your phone irrelevant. And the piece that makes that possible is already shipping. Meta's Neural Band launched September 30th, 2025, bundled with the Ray-Ban display glasses for $799. It sits on your wrist and reads the electrical signals your motor neurons fire using something called surface EMG. And here's where it gets genuinely strange. A Nature paper from Meta's own team describes achieving single action potential resolution, meaning it can isolate activity from individual motor units in your wrist. In plain terms, it can detect the intent to move a finger before the finger actually moves. You can write text with tiny finger twitches that nobody around you can see. You're typing, and no one knows. Now hold that thought, because there's something even more unsettling coming, and it connects back to that thing I mentioned at the start that almost nobody is talking about. The Neural Band solved a problem that killed neuromotor devices for 15 years. Earlier wrist devices like the Mio armband needed long, personalized calibration sessions for every single user because everyone's anatomy is slightly different. Meta trained the Neural Band on EMG data from nearly 200,000 research participants, so it works right out of the box for almost any wrist. The thing standing between you and a phone replacement was never the sensors. It was making one device understand any stranger's body with zero setup. That barrier just fell, and it matters more than the hardware itself. So now you have silent input from your wrist. But what about even more invisible input? MIT's Alter Ego project does something that sounds impossible until you understand the science. When you read silently or think in words, your brain still sends faint signals down to your speech muscles. They just don't fire hard enough to make sound. Alter Ego intercepts those signals from sensors on your face. In lab conditions, it hit 92% word accuracy at over 100 words per minute, which is close to conversational speed, and it replies through bone conduction directly into your inner ear. The whole exchange, you thinking words, the device responding, is completely silent and invisible to anyone around you. The IP was transferred to Alter Ego AI Inc. in April 2025, and they're marketing it as near telepathic. That's not hype. That's actually what it is. Stack these pieces together and you start to see the endpoint. EMG wrist input. Silent finger writing nobody can see. Subvocal sensing. Silent speech nobody can hear. Bone conduction output. Private audio into your skull. The result is computing that's completely invisible. Input no one can observe. Output no one can overhear. One CES 2026 write-up called a device like this an intimate witness, something that sees what you see, hears what you hear, and measures how your body reacts. That's not a gadget. That's a fundamentally different relationship with technology. And then there's the screen problem, which is the last piece of this. If you're doing invisible input and invisible audio output, the one thing left that forces you to look at a rectangle is the display. Contact lenses are solving that. Xpan CEO brought 5 working smart contact lens prototypes to MWC 2026, including one that combines a micro OLED display with continuous glucose monitoring from your tear fluid. The mechanism is the part worth understanding. A 0.48 mm, 14,000 ppi micro LED aims light directly at the fovea, the central patch of your retina that handles about 50% of your brain's visual processing, so it barely needs any brightness or power. And because the lens moves with your eye, the image is sharp everywhere you look. This isn't a 2034 concept. It was on a trade show floor this year. Now, the company that pioneered this space, Mojo Vision, ran out of money in 2023, so working prototype and shipping product are still different things. But the direction is clear. And then there's the wild card that ties all of this together. OpenAI paid roughly $6.5 billion in May 2025 to acquire Johnny Ive's hardware startup. The device coming out of that partnership, internally codenamed Sweet Pea, is described as pocket-sized, contextually aware, and completely screenless. Ive himself framed the screenless approach as a direct response to smartphone addiction. Something with a vibe that's not like walking through Times Square, with everything fighting for your attention. This isn't trying to be a better phone. The explicit goal is to end the phone. And the deeper shift underneath all of this is that these devices aren't just killing the screen, they're trying to kill the app. The whole direction, from Rabbit's failed large action model to whatever OpenAI ships, is de-appification. You don't tap an icon. You don't scroll a home screen. You just say what you want, or think it, and the device handles it. Rabbit got the direction right and the execution completely wrong, which is why it failed. But the direction is still the whole point. So here's where we actually land. Your kids are growing up in the last generation where using your phone means pulling a rectangle out of your pocket and staring at it. The replacement isn't one device, it's a stack. A wristband reading your nerves, sensors on your face catching your silent speech, audio going straight into your skull, and eventually a lens projecting directly onto your retina. Computing that fits around your body instead of demanding your full attention. The phone isn't dying because something shinier came along. It's dying because the thing people actually hate about it, the screen that hijacks your focus, is finally being engineered out of existence. If you want to go deeper on how AI hardware is actually reshaping the devices we use every day, there's a video right here that connects directly to this. And if this kind of thing is what you're into, subscribing means you won't miss where this story goes next, because it's moving fast. Drop a comment with which of these you think actually ships and wins. I'm genuinely curious whether you think it's the wrist, the face, or something nobody's announced yet.